All right, now things are getting interesting. Now we're getting into the Goblin. Well, John, why are goblins interesting? I mean, they've been in the game forever. They're just so plain. I mean, a lot of people in my generation, their first experience of D&D type goblins was in The Hobbit when they grabbed Bilbo and the dwarves. What's the big deal about goblins? Well, um, right now, in the world of the Loft project, see, this is where players can pretty much take this world and shape it and do whatever they want, especially when they build big guilds and things like that and try to take over countries. Because there's a little goblin named Ukon, and I will ask the player's permission to, like promote him here on the channel and stuff. I'm pretty sure he'll say yes. I'm pretty sure he'll get excited about the idea. But he is actually looking to get a goblin nation recognized. So in Mystara, which is the main world of the Loft project, things are only going to get less canonical, shall we say, as players have more influence on the world. And, Wizards of the Coast has never written about Mystara. The last time Mystara was written about, the people who owned the name brand of our favorite game was TSR. The last time Mystara was canonically written about was the 90s. And so now there's a whole bunch of, it's been written about since then, especially by the wonderful folks at Pandius.com, website I highly recommend. People at Pandius and other people have been continuing to publish gazetteers. They've covered the entire planet and more because it's hollow and the moons. And it's basically like Mystara just kept rolling in the fan community, even though the official company stopped writing for it. But in Mystara, there is a human kingdom, the kingdom of Karamakos. And if you looked at a map of that kingdom that was made by humans, from a human point of view, there's a forest that is inside the borders of Karamakos. It's the Dimrak Forest. And, there might be some notes on the map about how dangerous that forest is because there's goblins there. But it would be the Dimrak Forest, which on the human map would belong inside the kingdom of Karamakos. Now, if you looked at the same map, but it was made by goblins, that map would show the Dimrak Forest as the goblin nation of Dimrak. So, yes, totally a different point of view. So the Ukon is on a mission. It's one of his personal character goals to get Dimrak recognized by other nations, diplomatically in Mystara. So that this could have ramifications. So goblins are, they are definitely the story. There's definitely story potential with goblins. Do not underestimate the wee little goblin. In many of our worlds for our favorite game, goblins are tinkers, smiths, artificers, things like that. So if you wanted to be a crafty goblin, and I mean crafty as in crafting things, like steampunk machines and stuff, just let me know that can happen. In some worlds, they are the counterparts to gnomes in that way. In other worlds, sometimes they make kobolds the evil tinkers if gnomes are supposed to be the good tinkers. But if you want a tinkerish goblin, that is a trope that fits. There was one young lady. There was a couple of years that I was a game store DM for Adventure League and stuff like that, and that kind of ended because of the COVID times. But for a couple of years when I was a game store DM, there was a young lady who played a goblin, and all her characters were goblins, and she used to put up a big old fuss, create a lot of friction at a lot of the tables that she was at, because she really would take personally and resent the way goblins are treated in most human societies that see goblins as creatures, that see goblins as monsters. And as most of you know who play in the games or listen to my YouTube channel or something, the main base for a lot of the adventuring parties, I don't force it, I don't put a fence around it, it just naturally ends up being the base. But the base for a lot of the player character groups is the Principalities of Galantry. And in Galantry, they really don't care what species you are. All they care about is how magical you are. And so her character that she brought to my table was a goblin bard. You're magical. You do magic. You're a bard. So they really don't care what species you are. And she was like, totally fit into the table, didn't cause any problems. The owner of the game store was like, "Oh, thank you, John. Thank you for, having a table she fits in at." And I'm like, well, really, it's just where they're based at. Like, nobody in this society is going to care because the people in this society don't think that way. It's not that she couldn't go across the border and find another society where she'd be hunted to death. But then again, there's societies that hunt humans to death. So, just like the real world, there are different cultures with different attitudes, different beliefs, different understandings of, in our world, what it means to be human, but in, I guess, the world of our game, different understandings of what it means to be sentient. So a little story about a goblin player there. But so if you guys, are interested, I guess, in goblins taking over the world, I have no idea what's going to happen. We've got characters that are already talking about raising armies and toppling countries and stuff. So if if that sounds like your cup of tea, I think there's going to be that kind of silliness going on in the Loft Project soon. And if it's not your cup of tea, I'm sure that your overlords will allow normal adventuring. All right. I got to make up some of these because I was a little bit sick this past weekend. So I want to get back on schedule. So I have one more of these character class videos to do today. So, and that one is also a little bit silly. Just, fair warning. So I will see you in the next one.